Thank you for your patience this morning as we get started, and thank you for attending this virtual news conference. In this news conference, we will outline new charges of discrimination that will be filed by the Michigan Department of Civil Rights against the Grand Rapids Police Department. I am Vicki Levengood. I'm the Communications Director for the Department of Civil Rights. I'd like to introduce the two people who will be speaking here today. Director Johnson is the Executive Director of the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, and Marcelina Trevino, who serves as MDCR's Director of Enforcement. Director Johnson will open with details of the charges that we are filing this morning. During the news conference, all attendees will be muted. Following Director Johnson's comments, we will take questions from members of the news media. To indicate you would like to ask a question, please type your name and the media outlet into the chat function. Harold Core on our staff will then verbally call on you in order and unmute your line. Once you've asked your question, your line will again be muted. You can add your name to the chat again if you have an additional question. I will alert everyone when we are near the end of the news conference and take possibly one or two additional questions as time permits. And at the close of this news conference, we will be distributing a press release and copies of the formal charges. I'm going to turn it over now to Director Johnson for his remarks. Director?
Thank you, Vicki. Good morning and welcome, everyone. Attorney Trevino and I are here, as Vicki indicated, to announce a second round of formal charges of discrimination against the Grand Rapids Police Department. I would first like to thank Attorney Trevino and her staff for the thorough investigation of these matters, which have resulted this time in two charges stemming from a single incident that affected two minor children. As I stated during our July press conference when we announced the previous charges, the community concerns about bias and discriminatory actions on the part of the Grand Rapids Police Department did not begin with the killing of Patrick Lyoya in April. The Department of Civil Rights recognized in 2019 that alleged instances of bias and discrimination had reached a level of specific concern and prompted this department to hold two well-attended hearings, public listening sessions in Grand Rapids. More than 80 people talked about their negative experiences with the Grand Rapids Police Department during those public events, and dozens more contacted our office to file complaints. In total, MDCR is currently investigating 28 separate complaints against the Grand Rapids Police Department. We remain committed to thoroughly investigating each and every complaint and filing charges where appropriate. The charges we are announcing today are the result of two complaints filed by Juanita Lagone on behalf of minor children, identified in the charge as MC1 and MC2. MDCR, as Vicki indicated, will make the formal charging documents available to the media following this news conference. I'd like now to share some specific details of the complaints that will be filed today. Complaints 490-990 and 490-991 both allege unequal treatment because of race by the Grand Rapids Police Department on August 26, 2018. Police were dispatched following a 911 call about two children walking near train tracks with what appeared to be a toy gun. Approximately 3 minutes later, an officer stopped MC1, MC2, and a third minor who were walking together about a half mile away from the location indicated in the 911 call. The officer's in-car video shows that all three boys complied with all the orders given. Despite their compliance, the boys were held at gunpoint by multiple officers, including one using a high-powered rifle. Each of the three were searched and handcuffed before ultimately being released into the custody of a grandparent who was called to the scene by concerned people in the neighborhood. It is important to note that one, there was no initial crime reported. There's nothing illegal about two children walking near train tracks with what the 911 caller identified repeatedly as a toy gun. Number two, the three children were stopped a half-mile away from the location indicated by the 911 caller, only a few minutes after the call. Third, after searching all three boys and finding no weapons or illegal contraband, Grand Rapids police continued to detain and question them. Fourth, MC1 and MC2 identified themselves as being 11 years old and provided contact information for a parent. The older boy identified his age as being 17. Despite this, the Grand Rapids Police Department detained and questioned the three boys for around 20 minutes without contacting a parent or a guardian. Finally, the Grand Rapids Police Department was unable to show evidence of any white children who were similarly held at gunpoint, handcuffed, searched, placed in a squad car, and questioned in response to a 911 call and no allegation of a crime. The Grand Rapids Police Department provided no evidence that they treat individuals of another race the same in similar circumstances. So, what are the next steps? An administrative law judge will hold a proceeding to consider all the evidence and make a recommendation on whether the evidence shows discrimination occurred and what penalty should be levied in response. The Michigan Civil Rights Commission will then conduct their own hearing to consider those recommendations and make a final determination, which could include ordering corrective action and/or ordering monetary damages if they agree with the determination that discrimination did occur. Now, we'll take a few questions now. I'll turn this back over to Vicki. As she indicated, if you would like to ask a question, please indicate so in the chat and include your name and your organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. We now, as Director indicated, we'll now open it up for questions. To ask a question, and this is limited to the members of the news media, please enter your name and your media outlet that you're affiliated with into the chat, and Harold Cora on our staff will call on you in the order that we receive your requests for questions. So yeah, if anyone has a question, please do enter it into the chat now, and Harold Cora will call on you.
This is Harold Core. We have a question from Katie Foodie from the Associated Press.
Good morning. Director, given the number of complaints that you mentioned, 28, I think you said, what's the big picture approach to the Grand Rapids Police Department? Do you have to take these complaints individually, or is there any kind of big picture consideration here?
Well, John speaking. Thank you, Ms. Foodie. That is our approach. We take individual complaints and we investigate them individually. And that is what this is. This is not a pattern and practice charge. This is a charge based upon the individuals who have filed them. And we'll continue to investigate each individual complaint thoroughly. Marcelina, do you have any additional comments on this?
This is Marcelina speaking. No, Director, I think you covered it.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Harold speaking. Next reporter is Dustin Dwyer from the Michigan Radio.
Hello. I just like an update on the two cases that were filed this summer. Can you tell us where those are at in terms of getting a hearing, or whether there's been any progress there? And then second, I'd like anything you could tell us about how this volume of investigations compares to other cities or anything else to sort of give us context of the Grand Rapids Police Department in the context of other police departments in the state of Michigan in our cities.
This is Marcelina speaking. Thank you for the questions. First, regarding the 2 previous charges that were filed, those are still in front of an ALJ, and we are still going through pre-hearing situations, motions, and things, but they are ongoing. And as far as comparison to GRPD and the city of Grand Rapids and other law enforcement agencies within other cities, I do not have those statistics at this time. But that is something that we can get back with you on. However, I will say at this time, we don't have as many as the 28 that we currently have against the city of Grand Rapids with any other city law enforcement agencies.
Okay, had a question from Michael Krantz from Grand Rapids Press, but he said Dustin answered it. I'll still give you an opportunity to speak just in case you have something to say.
Yeah, I guess, you know, I know there were those hearings yesterday. What were the outcomes of those? And when can we potentially expect to see, you know, the hearing on those 2 cases come back to
Yes.
court, I guess?
So the motions, this is Marcelina speaking. So the motions that the ALJ heard, he did not make a determination or recommendation yesterday. And so we're hoping that we have an answer recommendation from him after the new year. And then I could not give a timeline on when hearing dates will be set. It really depends on the ALJ and if any additional motions will be filed.
Marcelina, can you please clarify what ALJ is? Everyone isn't used to hearing that acronym typically in their daily work.
Sure, this is Marcelina speaking. I apologize for that. An ALJ, Administrative Law Judge.
Okay, this is Harold speaking. At this time, I don't see any further questions in the chat.
If anyone has any other things they'd like to ask, please enter them into the chat now. We'll give you a few more minutes before we close down this briefing.
Yes, this is Harold speaking. Looks like we have another question from Dustin Dwyer.
Hi, sorry, I wasn't sure I needed to unmute for this, but just to make sure we understand this, the 28 investigations you're speaking of, that includes the 4 that have been filed as complaints, or is it 28 plus 4 total that we should be talking about here?
This is Marcelina. The 28 open investigations include the 4 that have been filed because they have not come to a final determination.
Okay, this is Harold speaking. Again, we do not have any further questions in the chat.
Okay, we'll give you a couple more minutes while I give you my contact information. Again, I'm Vicki Levengood, Communications Director for the Michigan Department of Civil Rights. If anyone needs to follow up with questions, please contact me at levengoodv@michigan.gov. That's spelled LEVENGOODV @michigan.gov. And my cell phone is 517-256-6789. It looks like there may be additional questions.
Yes, Michael Krantz, Grand Rapids Press, does have one additional question. Michael Krantz, you are able to speak now. I have you under, your mute has been removed.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was muted on my end there. I was speaking, I promise. I was just wondering why there were no discrimination charges filed regarding the 17-year-old in the incident. And then further, and you might have already said this, but could you please detail the races of the three children involved in this incident?
This is Marcelina speaking. Thank you, Michael. As far as the 17-year-old minor, we do not know. We take the complaints that are filed with our department. There was not a complaint filed by the 17-year-old or on behalf of the 17-year-old in this matter. And then your second question, all three minors are African-American.
If we have no other questions, Harold, can you let me know? Oh, we do. It looks like we do have one.
Yes, just had another one come in. Alyssa McMurdy from Gongwer.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I had a question about the toy gun in the incident. Was there a toy gun found anywhere near the young boys? Was it possible that this, there were two other young men who possibly, or young women for that matter, who possibly had a toy gun that were found on later in the day? I'm just kind of curious, like what happened with the subject of that 911 call.
This is Marcelina speaking. Thank you for that question. At this time, through our investigation concerning these two minor boys, there was never a toy gun found on them, near them, and there was no follow-up. I'm not sure I can answer the question on the follow-up in what the city of Grand Rapids and GRPD found later that day with other potential suspects.
Harold, are we finished with questions then at this point?
Yes, as of this time, there are no further questions.
Terrific. Thank you all for joining us here today. Again, please contact me, Vicki Levengood, at levengoodv@michigan.gov or 517-256-6789 if you have follow-up questions. We will be issuing a press release with the formal charges as soon as those are filed. Thank you for joining us again today, and we'll see you again soon. Goodbye now.